Hey guys, it's me, Mrs. Main, here to tell you about the first half of Act 4 of Henry V. Act 4 is really long, it's like 8 scenes, so I've broken it up into 2 parts. Act 4 starts, like every act does, with the prologue. The chorus comes out and describes for us what's happened. Basically, it's the night before the big battle. The English are in their camp, the French are in their camp, and the chorus gives you some great details. They describe the smoky fires in the camps and how the men are huddled around them. The chorus also describes the mood, which in the English camp is pretty grim. They are outnumbered and half of the men have died from dysentery, from battle. Henry sailed with about 11,000 soldiers, and many of them were lost at Harfleur, mostly to disease. And other battle casualties, so they're down to about half that number. They're down to 5,000 or 6,000 men. The French have way more than that, and they're not feeling so great. King Henry goes through the camp, he meets with the soldiers, he's looking to raise their spirits, and he does. So he's just like, he's being a politician here, glad-handing. But that's how the prologue sets the scene for us. Okay. Scene 1 starts with Henry and some of his advisors going over the plans for the next day's battle. This wraps up pretty quickly, and Henry says, guys, I need some alone time in my tent alone, and also, can I borrow this old cloak, for some alone time in my tent? And as soon as his advisors leave, he wraps himself in that raggedy old cloak, and he goes back out to pretend to be a common soldier. He sits down by a fire, and he waits for other soldiers to come by, and he asks them what they think of the King Henry V. So that's fun. The first person to come along is our good friend Pistol, who sits down by the fire. Henry V, wrapped in his raggedy old cloak of a disguise, says, "Hey, how's it going? Big battle tomorrow. What do you think about that Henry V?" And Pistol's like, "Oh yeah, I like him a lot. He seems like a good king. You know who I hate? I hate that Captain Fluellen." And he just goes off about Fluellen. Henry thinks this is really funny, and so he waits until Pistol winds down, and he's like, "Yeah, Fluellen's my relative." And just to see Pistol's face, Pistol does not disappoint. He says loads of bad words and stomps off, which is, now that I think about it, how Pistol exits almost every scene as he swears and he stomps off. So that's fun. He's a fun dude. Anyway, the next 2 people to come by Henry V's fire are Fluellen and Gower. They're captains. There's a big battle tomorrow. They're talking seriously and making preparations and completely ignoring Henry V. So he's eavesdropping on them, and he thinks to himself, that Fluellen is a very capable captain. And off Fluellen and Gower go. Then along come 3 other people. They're common soldiers, and their names are, hold on, John Bates, Alexander Court, and Michael Williams. You don't need to remember any of those names except maybe Michael Williams. He's going to be important later. Anyway, they sit down at the fire, and Henry V in his raggedy old cloak is like, "Hey, fellow soldiers, big battle tomorrow. What do you think about Henry V?" And these soldiers are like, A, he sucks. B, he's gonna get us all killed, and C, he's a great big coward. This does not go over well with Henry V, and so they argue back and forth. Henry V's like, he seems like a really good king. I'm sure he's doing the right thing. And anyway, they agree to disagree. And by that, I mean they agree to duel later. But they're going to be responsible about it. So they're not going to duel until after the next day's battle. And if they're both still alive after the next battle, they're going to fight each other because they disagree. The way they've decided to do this is with a traditional exchanging of gloves, which sounds pretty bonkers today, but basically Henry V takes one of his gloves, Michael Williams takes one of his gloves, and they just trade one glove. So that after the battle, if they're both still alive and they see some dude with one of their gloves, they'll know that's the dude they're supposed to duel with. There are some holes in this plan, obviously, and it's going to lead to a wacky misunderstanding later where some poor random dude gets punched in the face. So that's fun. Look forward to that. Then everybody leaves, and it's just Henry V by his campfire the night before the battle. Alone on the stage, he gives what we call the Upon the King speech. I give you the full text of the speech, and I've translated the bits a little bit at a time into modern English. It's included with your assignment this week, so I won't go over it here. I'm going to ask you in your assignment this week to create a meme that represents the king's speech, so that's pretty good. Anyway, in this speech, upon the king are the first lines of it. Upon the king, let us our lives, our souls, our debts, our careful wives, our children, and our sins lay on the king. Basically, he is saying being a king is hard. With great power comes great responsibility. And he is literally in charge of every single person in England. Their lives, their health, it's all really weighing upon him. It's weighing upon him because he's outnumbered in a battlefield in France, and he's afraid he's going to get all of his men killed. So he talks about how hard it is to be king and all of the responsibilities, and he asks himself, what is it that I get for being king, for taking on all these responsibilities and never getting a good night's sleep and always worrying about my subjects? What is it I get in return? And his answer is ceremony. That is, he gets the robes, he gets the title, he gets people bowing, right? And he's like, ugh. He says, yeah, because I'm the king, people say nice things about me, but they're lying. So people are lying to my face, and I have nice clothes, but I don't think it's worth it. He's feeling really down. It's a really interesting speech. I highly recommend you read the full text and create a meme about it. I tried my hand at memes. You can do better than I did, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so he has this moment at the end of the first scene where all of his doubts come out. And that's the end of the scene. The next scene is pretty short. We get to see the other side. We get to see what the French camp looks like on the eve of the battle. There are, like I said, way more French soldiers than English soldiers. There are about 20 to 30,000 of them, well armed. And so they're looking forward to tomorrow's battle. It's much rowdier. They give these beautiful speeches about victory. They are sure they're going to squish the English like a bunch of English bugs. And that's it. That's the whole scene. Okay, scene 3. It's the next day, the day of the battle. And Henry rides up. He stands in front of his troops and he gives this epic speech. It's called the St. Crispin's Day speech because he gives this speech on October 25th. Which is the feast day of St. Crispin. Yeah, I don't really know anything else about it. Anyway, he gives this epic speech. He's had some real doubts the night before, but he sucks it up, and he's a king. He's a leader, right? So he says, first, hey, all you English soldiers, if any of you want to give up and go home, I will give you money. You can buy your way back to France. Like, go. But if you stay, we few, we happy few, we band of brothers, we very, very few compared to the French, we few soldiers are going to have something to brag about the rest of our lives because we're going to beat the French. We're going to be like heroes. People are going to talk about this day and this battle hundreds of years from now. And spoiler alert, this battle took place in 1415 and we're still talking about it, so he was right there. Anyway, he gives this epic speech, and we're going to talk about this speech, but 2 speeches in 1 week is kind of too much, so we're going to talk about this speech more next week. Don't worry about it so much this week. Just, it's a really great speech. The soldiers are really fired up. They're really patriotic. They're not afraid anymore. They're not feeling pessimistic. At the end, the French messenger appears again and with a message from the King of France, which is basically, you can still give up, Henry. Like, we don't have to fight. You're way outnumbered. Just feel free to give up. And Henry is like, no. Okay, the fourth and last scene we're going to talk about today in Act 4 happens during the battle. It's, we see our good foul-mouthed friend Pistol on the battlefield, and he has captured a French nobleman. Now, Pistol doesn't speak any French, and this French nobleman doesn't speak any English. So the boy, remember the boy? The boy steps in and translates because he speaks French and English. Pistol's decided to not kill this nobleman, but to take him captive and make his family pay to get him back. But Pistol is a little unhinged, quite honestly, and this French nobleman is absolutely terrified because Pistol makes no sense. So Pistol marches this French nobleman off stage, and then the boy stays for just a minute on stage. He talks about how not noble Pistol is acting. He talks about his choices and who he wants to hang out with, and it's not these people. Also, he mentions a really interesting fact. Nim, like Bardolph, has been hanged for stealing. So the boy realizes these are not good role models. And that's the end of the scene.